This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. We are, still here in the mobile studio, traveling around, doing and continuing to do the series on rural innovation, what's happening outside of Silicon Valley that we find interesting and exciting. If you go back and you listen to a previous show, probably about a month ago, I was with Finn Gourmet Fish in Paducah, Kentucky, talking about the innovation they were doing both in the Chinese carp coming out of the Ohio River, but also their employment model where 90% of their employees are former felons, and they work with local halfway houses, etc., giving people a second chance. Well, while I was in Paducah, a number of people within Paducah reached out to me around different things that were going on in the area to make me aware of it. And we just flat ran out of time to cover everything going on in the northern Kentucky, Paducah area. So I've actually invited Monica, Bilak, and Jimi Gwinn, who are involved with the education side of what's happening in Paducah, and how do we prepare students for this innovation, creative economy that we're all facing. So Monica and Jimi, thanks a lot for taking the time out of your schedule today to join us here on the show.
Thanks for having us.
So, Monica, you and I actually connected because there was a bunch of Facebook posts about me coming to Paducah, and we tried to connect, but the timing, everything was actually between Thanksgiving, I guess it was, or actually between Christmas and New Year's. So school was out and people's holidays, and I get that. But you gave me a little bit of insight into what you were doing and within the Paducah school system on how do you help bring these kids and really think about not just the traditional rote memorization learning, but actually giving them the experience and the ability to unleash their own personal creativity and innovation. But before we get into that story, give us a little bit of your background, because you're not a native from Paducah, as I understand.
I'm not a native, but I've been here for about 17 years, and I've raised my kids here since they were toddlers. I actually moved here from East Africa, where I worked in education at a boarding school in Kenya.
Oh, wow, okay.
Before that, I lived in Texas, so and around the world, California, Kansas, and Georgia as well. But I started out in education, and I taught for about 4 years, and then moved out of that and actually went abroad and had kids and started doing a lot of development work depending on what was needed. It's a great thing about Africa is you can see a lot of need. It's really obvious, and you can really affect change in profound ways. So I worked with a school and also a nonprofit there. Moved back to the United States, found this quirky little town called Paducah, Kentucky that had this incredible art scene. And they were giving away houses for $1 if you would invest in them in what was called the artistry Relocation program. So that just looked fantastic to me. It looked like a little town that had something going on. And so I engaged in that, imported a lot of things from Kenya and had a fair trade shop and coffee shop together in one of the old Victorian houses in the artist district. From that, I got very engaged or involved in the community and started working at the city of Paducah and helping them do their downtown development. And that revolved into doing some consulting work and heading back into education, because as I was doing consulting work with these small communities, there was always this kind of disconnect between how the world was changing and the needs that could be fulfilled through education. So it was really fun to get back into education, kind of with my own agenda, maybe, but it's turned into some great things where I've got a wonderful district that has the profound awareness that the world is changing really, really fast, and the system of education is not aligned with how we think and need to work in this in this age.
Exactly. So, hey, Jimmy, give us a little bit of your background, because it doesn't come from a traditional background.
Right. So I guess whenever you see me, the first thing you'll notice is that I'm in a wheelchair. There's a car wreck and ended up getting paralyzed from the waist down. So whenever I went to school after high school, I guess we'll call that school one, I was looking for a desk that I could fit under, that my knees wouldn't hit the tabletop, and couldn't find anything. So ended up building one. And what started out as a 4x8 sheet of plywood with some 2x4s for legs ended up being this neoclassically inspired double pedestal behemoth made out of mahogany and teak and burled cherry. I loved woodworking, and I took to it like a fish in water. So after that, spring break, summertime, I would come home and I would craft jewelry boxes, trinket boxes out of exotic hardwoods, which kind of led me to my next career, which was jewelry making. A fellow from Memphis, a retired jeweler named Leon Gary, saw some of my work in a gallery downtown and asked me if I'd be interested in making what went inside the boxes. And he had been in custom jewelry for quite a while. I didn't have anything else going on, so I said, why not? I enjoyed that tremendously. Had some good successes there, and had my own custom jewelry studio for 6.5 years, thereabouts, in Paducah, Kentucky. During that 6.5 years, I ended up having my spinal column reconstructed, and this art that had become a release for the pain that I was experiencing was all of a sudden gone now that I had my spinal column fused. And my brain started working again, and I started thinking about different ideas and inventions for wheelchairs. And I came up with a device that would allow people who were relatively active to control the direction of their wheelchair with just body lean and their torso. One of my customers was a retired engineer, and he suggested I go to the Paducah campus of the University of Kentucky College of Engineering and present them with a capstone project idea, which I did. Fell in love with engineering. It was a way to find the solutions to all these questions that I had had for so long. And like I've done with everything else in my life, I jumped in feet first. So ended up 2 semesters later enrolling in the college. Went there, did great, started up a RC plane program for the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. And went to work for Toyota in their production engineering department. Met my wife, fell in love, decided to settle down, and got approached by Monica asking if we might be interested in moving back to the area, which we were definitely interested in. So she's now a teacher in Marshall County High School, and I'm doing this, which is very exciting. I'm pretty excited to do this.
Well, it's great. I mean, I think what's interesting is you all have had kind of this variety of path of your experience and expertise. And when it comes to creativity and innovation, it's sometimes about that variety of experience and knowing how to connect the dots in kind of some unique and unusual ways. And I'm going to put a little bit of a plug in. We just had a company on the show here, probably in the last 3 weeks, called Zogo. And it was founded by 2 guys developing accessibility technologies. One of the founders' sibling has lost the use of the arms, and they've developed a technology that will allow you to interface to any technology, set-top box, gaming controllers, etc. And then when I was at HP, I ran accessibility technology, so it's a unique passion for me. As we get coming down here to the commercial break, when we come back, what I'd like to talk about is specifically, and I apologize for the listeners, I've still got this cold and this cough that I've been having for quite some time. But when we come back from the break, what I'd like to talk about is specifically what you guys are doing with this program around this exposing to, creating kind of this, what I call this makerspace, specifically in Paducah, how that came about, and what your real mission and charter. What's the end objective, for, if there is an end objective, for that specifically. So when we come back, we're going to pick up our conversation with Jimi and Monica, touching base specifically here in Paducah, Kentucky, where we were at a little over a month ago, but understanding specifically about makerspace opportunities and makerspace opportunities that exposes these kinds of things to kids. So when we come back, we'll continue this conversation. Don't go anywhere. And for the listeners, check out the show notes. We'll have all the links we mentioned today in the show notes. Stay right there. We'll be right back after this short, quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Welcome back to Killer Innovations, where today here in the studio, joining us is Jimi Gwinn and Monica Bilak from Paducah. Now, Monica, give us kind of the background on you got into education with the school system there, but how did that lead into what we're talking about today, which is this makerspace, specifically in Paducah, that gives these kids this exposure to doing things with their hands and unleashing their creativity?
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, it was a perfect storm. Three things were happening in my world that helped me integrate the need for this makerspace. One was I was actually working with homeless students in our community. So we have a high rate of poverty in our district. And I was trying to figure out, oh my goodness, what would be honestly valuable for their lives other than giving them stuff? How can I give them knowledge that like could take them super far? And they were non-traditional learners, and they took to technology. They just loved it. It was highly motivating. I could get them to program. I taught them Agile. We were just doing all kinds of things. They were amazing. Little sixth grade group of boys after school, and they would come every day. I didn't have to prod them at all. They were there 3 days a week. That was going on where I was kind of figuring that problem out. Another thing that happened was that a company here in our community, Computer Services Incorporated, they're a large cybersecurity company. They do core bank processing. They're all over the country, but their headquarters happen to be here in Paducah. Approached all the educators in the community and said, "We love workforce from this community. They're the best. We have this amazing retention rate, all this loyalty. We're a great company. How do we get more people? Because we're always looking for talent. And we hate to have to leave and go out. Where's the talent here? We're not getting enough people from just our own community." And so that was just like this is something. I've got these two problems. Somebody has a problem, and somebody could have the potential solution to that problem, right?
Yep.
At the same time, I'm in design school at Parsons, so I'm also getting a master's degree. So I'm doing human centered design, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this a dream project? So I approached the company in the school district and said, let me take the summer off and get a team of collaborators together and let me develop a technology pipeline that would help us map out this in a way that really meets our user needs, which would be our students, really, for the school district. What really meets their needs of developing highly valuable skills, and how can we connect them, build those social networks for them, and then how can we connect them to the local business and industry right here? I mean, they can go away too, but let's give them the good skills. So that all happened at one time. And so there was about 5 recommendations I had at the end, just really encapsulating it. The very last recommendation was this idea of a makerspace. Because I knew we needed, what had happened in our community is everything had become siloed. So the college was over here doing their cool thing. School of Engineering's over here. We have a School of Art and Design here. We have so many assets, and yet we were all disconnected. And then I looked at youth, and the youth are even today even more so disconnected, I would say, than when I was a child, because there's not a lot of natural mentoring opportunities around shared curiosity. Boy Scouts aren't quite getting the numbers they used to. All these different groups aren't getting the numbers. Kids are motivated and kind of forced into doing lots of things that give them honestly, a lot of it in high school is a high ACT score, which doesn't really help anybody except the ACT people in the colleges. Good for them. But we needed to help people really move forward, and we need to help our community move forward. So we knew we needed this idea of a collaborative space where people could engage and share curiosity, rapid skill uplift, and really just how can we inspire them and push them. The other thing was how can we create a playing field, much like baseball has their farms, right? And you can go and you can see the talent. But we had nowhere for the talent to play, much less to be seen. And so I really wanted this arena, this playground of technology and a playfulness about it where people could enter and not be afraid. We're not giving out degrees. It's okay. We're not super expensive. It's just a come and see where you are in the digital space because it's really changed and it's changing really fast. The school really liked it because they knew that they couldn't keep up with that. The fast pace of technology is just way faster than a school can turn around and find a teacher, equip a room, all of these things, skill up. And so that's where the makerspace came in. That was the whole, we really need this. We're a small enough community. We should be collaborating, and that should be our leverage.
So how did you get it funded? What's the support model look like for this makerspace?
Well, it's still in development, but we shared the vision. We started this project, just the pipeline, just defining it about 3 years ago. About 18 months ago, through the Kentucky Workforce and Education Cabinet, there came out $100 million to develop game-changing, innovative, educational practices. So we applied for that grant to help change out our vocational system. And we had an old 1950s building where we're doing vocational education, and nothing's leveled up in terms of what industry needs. So we did that, started just locally fundraising, got about another $100,000 to just start a tester. So right now, our little Sprocket is a test lab for a larger space that would move in and out of our school.
So, and when you say little, give me the square footage. How big is Sprocket now?
840 square feet. But we have the potential of moving into a 4,200 square foot spot, assuming we can procure the rest of our funding. So the owner of a historical building, an old modeling this
that's a
in the project and really wants.
Yeah, at 840 square feet, that's a pretty small space.
We're tight.
We're really tight. We're in the boiler room and the old coal closet right now. But we turned the coal closet into a computer lab. My old boss, Tony Elder at Toyota, donated 30 CAD workstations to our spot, and we've got high school kids in there right now putting those things together.
Oh,
so
man. That's amazing. So we're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk more specifically about Sprocket and what your vision really for this impact on this community, both the target students, but also how do you make this sustainable? Is this a model that other schools can pick up and run with, whether it's in Kentucky or around the country? So when we come back, we're going to continue our conversation specifically around Sprocket and continue that conversation. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. This short commercial break. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We are continuing our conversation with Jimmy and Monica, talking specifically about the launch of Sprocket Makerspace, specifically targeting the kids in the local school system in Northern Kentucky. So, Monica, I'll throw this question to you. Obviously, you had a vision for the start of this piece, right? But maybe take a step back and talk a little bit about what you've seen already, because you've talked about you got the classroom with the kids, you've got high school kids who are elbowing their way into this small space now, trying to get their hands and get engaged on these types of things. What are you already seeing?
Oh, it's amazing. So I have to say, the first piece of this was really building the culture, and that's where even 3 years ago when I was sitting around with all these the C-suite at CSI, I'm like, we have to change the culture, and we have to change this mindset. And oh my gosh, how do you do that? And so that's what I've seen though that has happened. That gets me so excited because this is an intergenerational learning, right? It's for everybody. So it can be, we've got in this space right now, we've got a bunch of 17-year-olds, 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds, and then some other guys from, another company will come in and they're just as excited to help us install all our hard drives, as these kids are, which is fantastic. So, that is what we're already seeing is high engagement. We started events 6 months ago before we were even in our teeny tiny space. We were in another even tinier space, I guess, hosting events that were in the room. But we have a Tech on Tap event, and so the last Monday of the month, we just bring in somebody in technology and say, hey, can you share some stuff with us while we all sit around and listen to you? It's in Dry Ground Brewery, so it's an adult group, but it's just let's talk about the things that get us excited. So this Monday it'll be 3D printing and prototyping. We had an iOS developer in the month before. It's just different people are coming in, sharing their knowledge, and we see who shows up. And then we're amazed because we're like, who are these people? Where did they come from? And we found that we can really capture a lot of even the remote workers in our community. So we found that there's somebody who works on IBM Watson in our community. We've got a couple red hat, employees. You're just going, are you here? Where did you come from? So you kind of just put it out there. And then all of a sudden, there's this whole community of people you had no idea were there.
Yep.
So that is really
the hidden community all over the U.S. is absolutely amazing. It's like nobody's standing up raising their hand saying, yeah, I'm kind of over here under this rock, until they have an opportunity to build a more local community. And they're hungry, right? It's, how do you find and connect? So, Jimmy, you're working in this space now. It's pretty tight. What's kind of this near-term plan? You said, your boss donated the CAD workstations. What other technology is kind of on the horizon that you're looking to kind of put into this space?
Well, we've already got a couple of CNC machines,
Mm-hmm.
one 4-axis. We just got a new 3D printer, and we've got an old one that we've been burning through the filament on. We're planning on getting a new laser engraver sometime here in the very near future. So the idea is to really introduce kids to CAD and coding, first with 2-dimensional, so they can use the laser engraver, and then bump it up to 3-dimensional stuff, starting probably with the 3D printers, and then go over to the CNC programming, G-code writing, that sort of thing. Now, we've also procured a couple of welders, some woodworking equipment, and we plan on getting our hands on a Bridgeport mill before too long. What we're really trying to do is provide an environment for these kids to play and to fail, and learn that it's not the end of the world to fail. Right. You get the kids who perform really well on ACTs. You might get them behind a little trinket or something like that, and they get the I guess it's analysis paralysis, and can't figure out where to go because there is no predefined solution to the problem they're trying to solve.
Well, it's also interesting. I don't know if you're, follow Mike Rowe, and what he's doing with Mike Rowe Works. Mike was, when I was at HP, and Mike was actually a spokesperson for HP. The other overlap is Mike and I are both Eagle Scouts, so we know each other a little bit through our work there. But Mike's whole point is, and I love, I'm a big Mike Rowe fan, is the fact that sometimes college is not the best option for every kid, right? Right. And what is the role of, now you're an educator, Monica, so I'll excuse you here for a little bit, but what is the role of a college education, right? Look, I don't have a college degree. I went on to become the CTO at Hewlett Packard, and I never finished my degree because I got recruited out of college before I finished my last year of college and went on and had a phenomenal career, right? So I get these emails from parents all the time about, help, encourage my kid to go to college. I'm like, I'm probably not the spokesperson for that. Now, all my kids went to college and all graduated, and two of my kids have master's degrees. My wife has a master's degree. I didn't go. And it is tough, from the standpoint of how do you expose this to kids who only think that their path is either flip burgers at McDonald's, not that I'm against McDonald's, or they got to go to college, and it's that pass fail, meaning I got to get a certain score on my ACT, or I failed, and when I fail at that, that's everything. My entire future gets wiped out, and they don't understand about how do I experiment, how do I fail with no risk, how do I learn to experiment, whether it's something with using a machine or just taking a look at what's in front of them as far as their career options. So sorry, I got on my soapbox rant on that one a little bit.
No, I think it's a point. It's a great point, because if we don't start early with kids, exposing them, I mean, we'll have middle school and even elementary school kids in our space on field trips, and we'll have after school for middle school because they'll opt out if we wait till high school.
Yep.
They will not go into trades. If I don't do something in middle school and say, you can solder, it's really fun. Let me show you. You can do this. And these are all at the vocational school. These are trades that if you love it, go into it. You can explore it, expand it. Who knows where it'll connect at some point. So that's a big goal for us, is to really start early.
Yeah, it's just exposure, right? And look, one of my biggest arguments, I was on a project with the U.S. Department of Education back in 2011, late 2010, early 2011. How do you innovate K through 12 education in the U.S. when Artie Duncan was Secretary of Education, right? Project I should have never agreed to have ever been involved in because it's a nightmare, right? But the fact is look, we've taken art and music out of a lot of the educational systems, right? And for a lot of kids, that exposed them to be able to discover their own form of creativity, right? We've taken that out, right? So makerspaces like what you guys are doing is that space today that allows these kids to say, hey, I tried that, not so great. I tried that, wow, I really like that. And Jimmy, just like you, tabletop with 2x4s for the legs turns into this big mahogany, thing, and it unleashes your passion, right?
Right.
So how do you unleash, it's that exposure that I think we lack today, so much. And look, I was one of the original people involved with Tech Shop, which is the big makerspace in Silicon Valley. They've since gone out of business because the business model's a little tough. I'm involved in Colorado with a bunch of the makerspaces there. Very tough to create some form of a sustainable model. So I'm assuming you guys have looked at the other players that are out there, and hopefully you've got a different strategy than what some of these others are doing, because no one's found, I think, the magic formula yet for how do you make community makerspaces really sustainable and successful.
Exactly. And I looked at so many, I've gone all over, honestly, all over the world. When I was in Spain, and it has to have something for everyone. What we can do, though, is they can be inserted into your vocational schools, which is exactly where they should be. Every vocational school have a makerspace, in my opinion.
Yep.
You see it in libraries and different things. We also are leveraging a lot of partnerships.
Yep.
And we are starting small. And we're going to find out what really gets our community excited, and that's where we're going to grow it. So it's a combination.
Right. I think you're exactly right. We're going to take another quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, with both Monica and Jimmy here, about, okay, you guys have been going through this experience. What did you learn, and what did you wish you knew back when you started down this whole path? Because there's other people out there who are listeners who are trying to do the same thing, and I think they can learn from your experience directly. So don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this quick commercial break. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're wrapping up our conversation with Jimi Gwinn and Monica Bilak, working in the Sprocket makerspace in Paducah, Kentucky. A small space, but trying to do a lot of work in opening up the opportunities to kids to kind of unleash their passion for innovation, and see what that might lead them from a career or things that they want to do with their lives. So with that, you guys have been at this, Monica, you've been at this for 3 years, right? If you could have a little time machine and kind of go back and give yourself some advice, both Monica and Jim, either one can jump in here. What advice would you give yourself if you could have that time machine and go back 3 years?
Just get going.
Start it.
You'd be amazed at how many sleepers are out there who are going to come out of the woodwork and be like, hey, how can I help? What can I do? Just let me do something because I'm so excited about this idea. I spoke earlier about the kids who have that analysis paralysis. And I think a lot of people who start up makerspaces suffer from the same affliction. They want to do it the perfect way.
Right.
And you have to realize that, we haven't really found a sustainable business model out there that is going to make anybody a whole boatload of money. Granted, that's not why we're doing it, but you do need to be sustainable, and you do need to start with that in mind.
Well, Jimmy, I want to highlight on the one point you brought up, which was, though, just start, right? And start reasonable. Don't think you're going to go off and secure 10,000 space and $6 million worth of gear to fill that space, and then build it and they will come, right? We laugh about the fact that you're in such a tight space, but it's a do it and prove it, right? And then expand and then do it and improve it, which I give you guys kudos for. So, Monica, what advice would you give?
I would say take every opportunity to meet everyone. That has been the biggest thing. I ran down to Nashville for some EdSurge conference, just a little meetup, and it ended up connecting me with people in New York City who are excited about, new workforce skills, and it was amazing. It's just take those opportunities. Never get too much in the weeds that you're not building the culture. Don't stop building the culture. Because that's really the most important piece. The people will do the work. They'll get excited about it. They'll come in with the muscle. But you've got to cast that vision, and sometimes it's got to be pretty wide.
Yeah, and I think also, it used to be, particularly when there was this, big rush of for-profit, makerspaces, everybody felt like they were in competition with each other for that funding or investors or whatever it might be. And I think that model, with what's happened with Tech Shop, has kind of proven to be not sustainable. It's really a passion project, for both people who've got skill sets. There's a phenomenal makerspace that got launched in Detroit. These are all retired machine operators from Ford and Chevrolet and GM. And they've actually now created a whole ecosystem for kind of resurgence of manufacturing in Detroit that's not auto related. And it all started because a bunch of these retirees all got together and said, hey, why don't we teach some kids in the neighborhood, get them off the street and give them some skills that could be marketable.
Using everybody in the community that's got some skills and not discounting. Even the teenager who can install hard drives, or the retired citizen who can as well. They're all valuable, and everybody has a contribution. And I think that's kind of what we go with when we're thinking of building this. Everybody can contribute.
Yeah, and I think don't prejudge, right? Look, okay, I was CTO at HP, and I'll run into kids today that could dance circles around me on products that were released when I was still at HP, and they can run circles around me on the product, right? Because of their passion, their interest, their excitement, etc. So don't let I think that's an excellent point on don't prejudge. So Jimmy, Monica, if listeners want to keep up with what you're doing, and maybe, who knows, maybe actually support what you're trying to do there in Paducah, what's the best way for them to track or reach out and get in contact with you guys?
So the best way is to check out our website for sure at Sprocket&nbsp.com, or you can find us at Paducah Innovation on Facebook. You can message us there. You can email Jimmy at Sprocket@Paducah.com.
Spelled Jimi. And also the Paducah, Paducah.
Yes, you've got to be worried about the Paducah spelling. it is a little takes a little. If you're not familiar with it, it's a little different. And actually, what I'll do is I'll put up links to everything in the show notes so that you know people can find it easily. Reach out to you, see what you're up to, and hopefully, you never know. Maybe there's a listener out there who gets excited about what you're doing. And I know one listener who's actually from the west of Lexington, who's actually was with me at HP. We were both from Kentucky, and I was telling him about my Paducah trip. And you never know, we might get some people excited about what you guys are doing, and I'm excited about what you guys are doing. I think it's great. I think this is where the future of education needs to go. I think unleashing and helping kids, whatever their background is, helping kids kind of find that passion that drives them. Because I'm a big believer: find your passion, and then find how you make money doing your passion. Then work is not work. Work is passion, and people can have a very satisfying, very fulfilling career, and can contribute to the local economy. So, Jimmy, Monica, thank you very much for taking the time out to join me today. As we wrap up today's show, if you've got a guest who you think should be on Killer Innovations, just drop me a note at phil@killerinnovations.com, and we'll work to get them scheduled up. We are on the road in the mobile bus. You can go over to the Innovator studio, check it out, and see what the bus is all about. But if your community is doing something interesting that you think we ought to come by and see what it is and put it on the show, again, drop me a note, phil@killerinnovations.com, or post it on the Innovator Studio Facebook page, and we will get right back to you. And in fact, this is how Monica and I connected. She saw the post on the Facebook page, responded, and now we're talking Sprocket. So again, thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, Monica. You guys are doing yeoman's work. It's what we need for the educational movement. So I want to thank you for the service you guys are providing. With that, we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.